openings. So I'm going to do that. Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, Robert Meyer Burnett, and I invite you to watch and listen to the Designing Hollywood podcast, brought to you by Martika Ibarra and the great, legendary Hollywood costume designer, Marilyn Vance. I am afforded the wonderful opportunity of co-hosting the show. If you are interested in the magic of Hollywood, the design of Hollywood, the clothes of Hollywood, watch the Designing Hollywood podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts from, or find the video version on YouTube. That's right, the Designing Hollywood podcast. Why would you ever want to miss it, especially if you love the movies?
Tango Shalom is now available on all VOD
major platforms. I think we messed that up.
Video on demand, or as they say in the trade, VOD.
VOD. Tango Shalom is now available on all VOD platforms,
which means
video on demand.
Look how you know. You must be a high school graduate.
I'm a college graduate.
Really?
Yes.
I got an honorary degree from Hofstra. Did you get an honorary degree?
No, I got a degree.
Oh, well, I got honorary. You know, I'm in the Jewish Museum.
What for?
What do you mean? As a famous Jew in the Bronx. I'm in the famous...
I'm in the Prospect Park in the Stones.
How big is the stone?
Robservations with Robert Meyer Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, and everything else people call me, your evangelist of the imagination, the still undefined existential Mr. Rogers, Robert Meyer Burnett. That's me, and I am robcasting at you, imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. This is Robservations episode number 774, kind of a different Robservations, talking to you at night, right before Christmas week. Well, it is Christmas week. It's not before Christmas week, before Christmas. And I have a special guest with me, one of my favorite people on YouTube, Paulie from the channel The Latino Slant on YouTube. And if you haven't subscribed, you should follow him on Twitter. Paulie, welcome tonight to Robservations.
Hey, hello everyone in the community, in the chat, and not only are we favorite friends, I guess, on YouTube, but now in person.
Now in person, you know, I've got to tell you, one of my favorite things over the last 2 years during COVID, I've just met a lot of really cool people that I now consider friends, but so many of them I've never met face to face. We only see each other virtually through screens, which is kind of apropos considering what we went and saw today. I said that I got tickets to this, and you sent me a message and said, "Hey man, what show are you going to, and where are you going to go see it?" And I sent you back the ticket confirmation, and you got a ticket too. And we got to meet each other for the very first time. Saw a movie together. We basically went on a date because my two dates,
right?
Elizabeth wasn't feeling well, and Sophie was still sleeping, so I went by myself, you know, and we went and saw it in the IMAX theater at the Regal Alhambra theater, which is a pretty good theater. The presentation was quite nice, and I could have had it louder, but I always want things louder. But it was great that you got to experience this movie with me. Now I have to ask you, first of all, are you a Matrix fan? Are you a Matrix disciple? How do you feel about the Matrix trilogy? When was the first time you saw the Matrix? Tell me everything, Paulie.
Sure. Well, I'm a big fan. All right. In that I saw it in the theater when it came out. We didn't know what this was, right? It literally came out of nowhere and slapped us upside the head and said, we're going to change cinema and sci-fi forever. And it really did. It really did, because the big, the big to do that year was Phantom Menace, and that did not deliver. And I think weeks later, the Matrix
I actually think this came out before. Matrix might have come out before Phantom Menace.
Okay. Well, I can't
it was
remember.
Close. Like it was. I think it was April and May.
It was April and May. I'm not sure which one I saw first, but I saw it at the Chinese theater. I saw the Matrix at the Chinese theater. Yeah. In back when it was still a little grody. And it was amazing, man. It was amazing. And since then, and I was thinking about this. There's so much to break down, but with Reloaded and Revolutions, there was so much hype.
Much hype.
Like Phantom Menace was.
Yeah.
That at the time, Reloaded was the biggest R-rated movie release in history.
Yep.
As far as making money. And we did what we did then. What we did today was, we didn't. I did the midnight
right
IMAX thing, or whatever it was. And I remember just falling out like, what did I just see?
Yeah.
It was like,
I mean, it ends with the conversation with the architect, and I mean, what I thought was really interesting about the Matrix, the first Matrix, is that.
Well, let me just finish real quick.
Oh, yeah, sure,
real quick, because Animatrix and the soundtrack, it was everything. The Matrix was not just the film; like it was the tech, the sci-fi, and the music,
and the PlayStation 2 game. They had the Enter the Matrix game.
I don't play games, and I played that game.
Yeah. You had to do it all. It was a true transmedia thing that they were trying to push on us.
It really was. I mean, the music, the cassette, the CD, it stayed with me for years, man. For years. To where I could listen to it right now and just bring back a lot of memories. So yeah, that's where I'm sorry I didn't mean to cut in.
No, not at all. I cut you off. Yeah. By the way, Mike Swee says happy holidays, Rob. Well, Mike, thank you. Thanks for that super chat. I very much appreciate it. Now, what I thought was really interesting about the first Matrix is it was in a time in the ancient times when you couldn't. It took hours overnight to download a trailer, so it wasn't like you could just hop on YouTube, which didn't exist, and watch the trailer. So, if you saw the trailer in a movie theater, you might know what it was, but really nobody knew what the Matrix was. The Wachowskis at the time had made the low-budget indie movie Bound, which is terrific. They had written Assassins that Richard Donner had directed. And Keanu Reeves had starred in a William Gibson adaptation called Johnny Mnemonic that was directed by the artist Robert Longo. I think it was the first and only feature film he'd made. He had directed New Order's True Faith video with the crazy slapping, the giant weebles slapping each other. And it wasn't very good. So the idea that Keanu Reeves was going to star in a new cyberpunk thriller was not something anybody was particularly excited about. And I was invited to an early screening on the Warner Brothers lot at the Steve Ross Theater. And I was really excited. I would go to see any movie at the Steve Ross Theater, but nobody really knew what it was. And it was one of those times where I have to say that my jaw hit the floor. Like normally I've read so many books and so many comics and seen so many movies that I'm usually ahead of the plot most of the time. And when the famous scene, the red pill or the blue pill, and now being red pilled is part of our vernacular, cultural vernacular. But at the time, no one knew what that meant. And I do have to say that one of the most jaw-dropping moments in a movie theater was that scene. Because when Neo wakes up in that pod and you realize all of humanity has been sequestered away to act as batteries for this machine intelligence, this machine ecosystem, it was
Duracell.
Truly, we're all Duracell batteries. It was truly one of the most shocking moments, and also I was very elated because I didn't see it coming. I was
Well,
the word
yeah,
gobsmacked. We don't really use that
yeah,
word here. It's an English
yeah.
word, but incredible, right? I mean,
It's I mean it's so visionary. It's still, it in Keanu Reeves's words in the first movie, whoa.
yeah, whoa. I
I
mean,
mean, the
yeah,
opening sequence alone, I think that's what got them some more funding, if I'm not correct. They had that filmed and they showed it to Warner Brothers, whoever it was, which got them more funding because they had shown that something either funding or I don't know what, but they had shown that opening sequence, and
yeah.
who wouldn't be in?
And this also, the movie was this heady amalgamation of Japanese anime and manga. And they
Mm,
had Jeff Darrow, who had worked with Frank Miller on Hard Boiled as a concept artist. So I remember hearing
mhm,
Lorenzo de Bonaventura, who was at the time, he's a big producer now, but he was an executive at Warner Brothers. And they were all kind of perplexed by it all. But the Wachowskis, they had known them and they saw this material and it all looked cool to them. And they figured, why not
yeah.
roll the dice? And the first Matrix cost around $65 million, which was not inexpensive, but we'd already moved into the $100 million plus realm. So this was a relatively inexpensive film.
Mm,
But what was so amazing about
mhm,
The Matrix is it was such a heady concoction of both action cinema and philosophy and the idea of systems of control, and yet it was also, if you want to look
mm,
at it just as a kick-ass sci-fi action thriller, it's that. And it had groundbreaking visual effects, it had all of these things, and I remember just coming out of the movie breathless thinking, my God, this is why I go to the movies. And not only that, Lee, you talked about the music. I mean,
mm.
the soundtrack of this film. I mean, I remember Death by Clubbing and the and Spy Break and Rage Against the Machine, and it's interesting because they called
Marilyn
the
Manson.
Marilyn Manson. They called back, which is over the end credits, I believe. There's a great Marilyn Manson song, but there's the propeller head Spy Break piece of music they used in a very clever way in this movie as well. Now, what I found really interesting about Matrix Resurrections was this wasn't that. I mean, this was a
No.
film that was doing, first of all, what I wanted from this movie was I wanted something that interested me from an intellectual standpoint. I mean, obviously, you could tell from the trailers
Mhm.
that they weren't going for the groundbreaking effects work, probably because they didn't have the budget. I would imagine that they didn't
Mm.
hire Yen Wo-ping's Hong Kong guys to come over and do, because if they didn't have the money to do what they needed to do. So I'm sure they did this. This was probably the low budget version of a Matrix sequel.
Okay.
Whereas for Reloaded, they built a 2 mile stretch of freeway. They actually built a
Yeah.
stretch of freeway to shoot the car chase from Reloaded on. And that was the
Yeah.
first thing that they did in the film. So what I wanted from this movie was I wanted some heady sci-fi. That's what I was looking for. And what were your
Yeah.
expectations?
Well, because I was, so let down, and you're right. I mean, The Matrix is one of those movies where you're just you feel it's you feel great to be part of cinema. This is why you go to cinema. You could say that about the latest Spider-Man. You know, but or even Spider-Man 2, where you never seen fights like that done,
Right.
right? More
Doc Ock,
Spider-Man 2.
Doc Ock on the
Yeah,
train with that was
train and on the buildings. I mean, I had yesterday I finished 2, and I was like, wow, this was really, this was the first. Because what was before? What was before Matrix? Nothing.
yeah, not much. I mean,
So
there were things like I thought that I really liked The Crow, and I feel like The
yeah,
Matrix, the precursor to The Matrix
hmm
was the first Blade
Blade,
using
Donnie
pop.
Darko,
Yeah,
Crow. hmm Yep, yep. But it was part of that whole '90s, I couldn't even try to tell you the philosophy or the feeling at the time when I'm what maybe 90s. I think you know what I mean. Because
Oh yeah.
it was really permanent, permeated in a lot of films. So with Reloaded was such a letdown because Reloaded and Revolution, even though I think now they've become kind of like the Disney prequels. They're kind of you're kind of loving them, now that you're away from them. But if you didn't see them in the theater and you weren't part of the hype, then you weren't part of the huge letdown that it
Right.
was.
Well, that's another thing that I feel that, like, what was really interesting to me, like this movie. By the way, for those of you watching this stream, we're going to spoil the shit out of this movie. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's why we're talking about the
this is
past,
a
right?
complete spoiler stream.
Yeah.
It's on HBO Max. It's in the theaters. One of the things I really thought was interesting about the way this movie opened is they're replaying the opening of the original Matrix, but this time we have a new character, Bugs, who's watching Jessica Henwick.
Henwick, yeah.
She's actually watching a replay of the opening of the first movie, which is slightly different. And what I found really interesting about this is that it immediately tapped into this whole, like, she's a Matrix fangirl. Like, in the Matrix world, the stories have become almost fiction. And people can memorize them and people can watch them, and you can watch, like, Neo's life has been in this movie. The Matrix movies have been digitized, and it is reality. It is a reality that happened. It's become history, but you can watch it, and you find out that as we watch this, things kind of go awry. There's some different things. The character, the Trinity character, isn't Carrie-Anne Moss, but we're still watching a replay of the scene,
Right.
And
Look and feel, same location, heart of the city, but the E in the neon lights was out, which I thought was really cool. There's but you asked about my expectations, and because of not being because of my experience with it, I had very low realistic expectations. I did like the trailer, I did do reaction and all that good stuff, and breaking it down, and you know, um, I love these actors. So I hadn't seen Carrie-Anne Moss in something in a while, so I was very excited about that. I was telling you there's a couple of international actors in it as well, so I was hyped about that, and I like that it's one of the Wachowskis that's doing it. It's one of the creators.
yeah, one of the creators going back.
Yeah. So I didn't read up on the history of, like, was Warner going to do with or without them. So I was just like, okay, it's coming out on Christmas. Cool. I'm there. And a lot of people of our generation are going to be there, whether it's on HBO Max or in the theater, because the Matrix marked our generation, coming out of the 90s and into the new century.
Yep. Well, there's a review. Obviously this movie has proved to be very divisive. There's a lot of people, a lot of hatred coming from quarters on this film. And I'll admit I quite enjoyed this movie a lot, watching it, because from the very beginning it put me in the position that Bugs was in. As a Matrix fan, I'm like, wait a minute, this opening scene that's not really Trinity. I mean, am I watching Terminator Genesis, where they're showing me different the scenes I've already seen in other Terminator movies, but with different actors? And I'm like, what does this all mean? Well, there's a review on Polygon today by Joshua Rivera that I want to keep referring back to, because I think it really nails how I felt about this movie. And I won't read the whole thing, but here's how it starts. Over the next 22 years, Mr. Anderson's story in The Matrix becomes a different, newer myth, disseminated through the burgeoning internet and refracted through various subcultures. Depending on which set of eyes it encountered, the story's symbolism and themes took on new meanings, some thoughtful and enlightening, others strange and sinister. The Matrix Resurrections version of this story is, once again, there's Keanu Reeves as Thomas Anderson, a gifted programmer who suspects his world is wrong somehow. Once again, he's contacted by people claiming to confirm his suspicions. Once again, he refuses to believe, and for a little while the story seems the same, to the point where it doesn't seem worth telling. And yet the world it's being told to, our world, the one where we've returned to see a new film called The Matrix for the first time since 2003's Matrix Revolutions, is very different. In the final days of 2021, Thomas Anderson, just like those watching him, meaning us, has much more to doubt. And Resurrections finds its meaning from that. What I found really interesting about this movie is, when we saw The Matrix, we all knew what was in the real world. Or we were pretty convinced we did. Everybody's version of reality seemed to be pretty much the same. So when you were watching The Matrix, we all knew what the difference was between being inside the Matrix and being in the real world. I mean, in the movie, the real world with Zion and all that was their real world. But we, the audience, we knew what our real world was supposed to be. But I think that's changed now. And when I was watching this movie, like this review is referring to, we can't even decide in 2021, especially in the United States, what is real? What is reality for us now? We have a very divided nation. We have groups of people that can look at the same events and have two very different interpretations of what reality is. And I think this movie from the get-go starts touching on that, because not even the retelling of the Matrix in this movie is the same. It's been altered somehow. It's really interesting because the Mr. Smith character, the agent, no, Lieutenant, your men are already dead. That was Yahya Mateen. You know, that was a black actor we've come to know him in Aquaman and in Watchmen, and he is the Agent Smith in this retelling. And we've believed, because of the trailers, that he's Morpheus. But in this opening scene of The Matrix Resurrections, he's Agent Smith. So immediately they're going back and they're retelling The Matrix, but it's different. And I thought that was all very interesting. So from the very beginning of this movie, I found my interest was piqued. I'm like, okay, this is sort of fascinating. And after this whole scene plays out and the new character of Bugs, she with the blue hair, who I really loved, things play out differently. Agents come after her. And then we pop out of that sequence and suddenly we find Neo, we find Keanu Reeves is working. He's now a programmer. He's a star programmer. He's like Kojima, who made the Metal Gear Solid games, but now he's one of the star video game developers of the modern day. And it turns out that the Matrix Reloaded, and the Matrix Revolutions are games that he created. And he's a game, and what he's been doing is he's been experimenting with his old games, the Matrix 1, and creating these modals where you can play around, and something weird is going on inside these simulations he's been running in the code of his own game. He's been playing with the Matrix himself that he apparently believes he created, and I thought that was fascinating. I was like, because this idea, and another thing that I really loved in this film, and I went back when we got home today after we saw the movie, I watched most of it again.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah. And,
nice.
and one of the things that I really loved about the second time I watched it is that we see Keanu Reeves looking like he does in real life, like John Wick. Like we're looking at him as the actor Keanu Reeves. But in the movie, he doesn't really look like that.
Right.
And they keep showing reflections like he's an old gray-haired looking dude. And, within the Matrix, people don't see him the way we see him. They don't
Right.
see Keanu Reeves. They see this old, and you see flashes of that in the mirror. There's a couple of just quick shots of him turning, and you see reflections of this old dude with gray hair. So
Yep.
we are looking at Keanu Reeves looking like the actor Keanu Reeves. He doesn't look like Neo while he's in the Matrix. He looks like how Keanu Reeves looks to us. So
Yeah.
it's definitely playing with us in that way, because not even the characters in the Matrix see him as Keanu Reeves. They see him as this old gray-haired dude, like some, and I can only imagine, all the younger characters, they all revere him, but only he sees himself as Keanu Reeves, and so do we, which I thought really was interesting. And immediately I was drawn in by all of this. Like, I'm like, where is this going to go? How did you feel about that?
Well, I mean, first of all, Wachowski, I said this to you when we were hanging out afterwards. Who in their right mind would go back and touch something they created like this? Just rest on your
Well,
laurels.
George
Yeah,
Lucas.
yeah, and that's and the Phantom Menace and all that got a lot of backlash, so much that he sold off Star Wars. So I guess what I'm getting is that we always the things that we're looking for right now is just like, well, we want the original creators. We don't need someone to go and remake it. This is it. This is a Wachowski continuing the story. There's no reimagine. It's not a redo. It's not a reboot. It's a continuation.
Yep.
Because the world is so changed from 1999.
Especially the internet. I mean,
Everything.
Our
Everything.
world, the internet has totally destroyed what our idea of truth is. As a matter of fact, our real world, to be red-pilled, there's millions of YouTube videos talking about being red-pilled now.
Yep.
Where and we have fractured our own reality using terminology from the Matrix movies. Yeah. So it's a very, this movie's very meta already. I mean, Warner Brothers, they even name check Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers is going to remake the Matrix video games with or without Thomas Anderson as the creator. And they start getting into all this very meta stuff, and to me it was just reflecting back on how the Matrix itself has now informed the reality of our divided state here. How many videos do you watch where people talk about you need to see the truth, you need to be red-pilled to get the truth? Men's rights sites, or Proud Boys, or whatever.
It's crazy how part of our culture it is. You're absolutely right. So I'm with you. Look, I really enjoyed the film. It was clever. It was smart. It was funny. There were, and I even said to you, there were no long action sequences, which were like kind of part of 2 and 3 more than one. So Wachowski was really doing, she was doing things differently, and yet using the same blueprint, right?
She even says, they say that Andrew Caldwell says, I got one word for you, bullet time. Like they just flat out say, and the movie's saying, we're not going to give you that. You're not getting bullet time. And I keep seeing all these criticisms like, well, these fight scenes and it was even the way the fight scenes were shot with shaky cam. Because everyone talks about that's become like the original Matrix did not use shaky cam. Everything was very composed and beautiful and designed. Now I felt that even the action scenes were a meta commentary on action scenes, because this movie did not have the It just didn't have I think the budget to even mount action scenes like that. So they went in the other direction. They gave us sort of, in a way, cheaper shaky cam that was the antithesis of what the Matrix presented us in the first place. These incredibly beautifully composed action scenes. This movie's like, can't do that. I know that's what you're expecting, but it was like a meta commentary on, and yeah, you still had to have fight scenes because you're in the Matrix. But in Matrix Revolutions, they gave us the Burly Brawl where Neo fights 100 Agent Smiths. There was nothing like that in this movie because this movie was not that. It was this is a new rebooted version of the Matrix, not a reboot as we know it, but within the Matrix universe, this was a new Matrix that was created after the end of Revolutions. And I thought all of this was a commentary, and the characters in the game were commenting on. In the movie were commenting on it, and I was eating all of this up. I was eating all of it up, just going, I'm really loving all of this.
Now, that being said, Wachowski's take on our modern day society is much more miserable than it was 20 years ago.
Right.
And, and the way they hid Neo in his own game, as the maker of his own game, and he's kind of a nut, and I liked it. You had to go different. Yeah, you couldn't do the same thing.
No, and what's interesting is this Polygon review, it says on a very basic level, it's about the insurmountable and inherently cynical task of making a follow-up to the Matrix trilogy.
Ew.
One that breaks technical and narrative ground the way the first film did. On a thematic one, it's an agitprop romance, one of the most effective mass media diagnoses of the current moment that finds countless things to be angry about and proposes fighting them all with radical, reckless love. On top of that, it's also a kick-ass work of sci-fi action, propulsive, gorgeous, and yet intimate, that revisits the familiar to show audiences something very new. And it goes on to say, The Matrix Resurrection soars by echoing something old. A familiarity with The Matrix and its sequels, The Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions, come in handy. Slowly they reveal how Neo, seemingly deceased alongside his love and partner, may or may not have survived once again to become Thomas Anderson, a blank slate who has trouble telling what's real and what's not. And what I do like about this, what I loved about this movie is that I kept thinking as I was watching the film, I'm watching all of this unfold, and it made me realize that in not knowing, if we don't agree, we, meaning us, the audience, don't agree about what's real in our own lives, well, then we're lost. We don't even agree about biology anymore. the most basic beginnings of life, we don't agree anymore. We've even changed the language we use in our culture for fear. If you don't use the right language anymore, you get eviscerated as a person, and you'll get destroyed on the internet. You walk outside, no one can tell what you've said on the internet, that you might get canceled for whatever you say, but you walk outside in the quote-unquote real world, and even that's different from our online personas. And everything has become so blurred. I felt like it was I was so engaged by as I watched this unfold, and there was so much going on. I was thoroughly engrossed by this movie from a very early stage.
We both were, and it can't. There's no way it could be. There is nothing like The Matrix, the original. But this, I feel, is a great take on 20 years later. A more broken down Neo, a more broken down Thomas Anderson. I would have liked to seen like old man Anderson a little bit more,
Yeah,
but
me too.
you had said that. Um, so other highlights was definitely Bugs. I thought she was incredible in her pursuit of making Neo come back and completing the mission. She was a fan. You just can't take your eyes off of her.
Right.
She eats up the scenery.
She's actually directing a feature film, or she just directed a feature film. That
Really?
Jessica, yeah.
Wow. Damn.
No, I agree
good
with
for-
you. I really, really liked her. And then again, I love the fact that she's the stand-in. She's the Uber fan. She's us. She's
Yeah.
like the Matrix fan. Like, she knows the entire story of the Matrix.
Mhm.
She knows the legend of Neo and Trinity and all that stuff. And to the point where if she goes back and goes into these old nodes that are playing these old scenes out, she knows, well, that's not how it happened.
Right.
And
She knew exactly
she knew exactly what was going
Yeah.
on. And I feel that all of that was very, I mean, it's very cheeky and everything, but also, it just made me thinking, because look, we as audience members now, we're watching these stories, especially our franchise properties, and the Matrix has become a franchise. It's a trilogy. It's a movie trilogy. But we as audience members, and I'm guilty of this, especially when it comes to Star Trek, because I know Star Trek so well, when I'm given a Star Trek that I don't think is good, and indeed Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Picard are horrible, but who am I to say that? It's like, what gives me the right to impugn other creators' work, and yet with the Matrix movies, everyone's like, well, the Matrix was the good one, and Matrix Reloaded was okay, but then Matrix Revolution sucked.
There's Animatrix.
And the Animatrix has lots of cool stuff in it too, but it's the Matrix films have become in a way a microcosm of much larger franchises. The way that Star Wars has existed now for, well, in 2022 it'll be 45 years. I mean, Star Wars is 45 years old, and you have multiple generations weighing in on what was good and what was bad, and how. And it's funny because George Lucas came back and directed Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith, and people hate those prequel trilogies suck. The prequel trilogy sucks, and now I'm watching the same blowback on this movie within it. This movie hasn't been out for. It hasn't even been out for 12 hours yet, or 24 hours, and it's being eviscerated by us, the fan community online.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's amazing because life imitates art, imitates life. It's crazy.
Yeah, the question, the first question, right, of any movie that comes out, was it woke? Was it woke trash?
Well, it's funny because the Matrix movies they're multi-ethnic, and even the Wachowskis said that ultimately the Matrix was a trans allegory, and one of the characters even says it. When they're talking about when all the creators have come together to talk about what is the Matrix, what is this new game supposed to be? It's gonna be It's gonna be trans politics, or it's gonna be this, or it's gonna be that. I mean, they just come out and I almost laughed aloud at some of that stuff because
those guys were great. They were so annoying that they're hilarious. And another thing was Christina Ricci was there in one scene. I'm like, looking gorgeous and crazy.
Yeah,
I wanted more. I mean, it was like,
well, it's funny, Andrew.
But you're right. Before there was woke or whatever it was, the Wachowskis were fighting for certain things in their first film, in the first Matrix. A friend of mine was their assistant, and she pointed out exactly what things they fought for that stayed in the film. And trust and believe, now that stuff would be considered woke.
Right.
Little things, little victories for them in the first movie.
Yeah.
So it was always there, guys. It was always there. And My hats off to them on the first one. I I know that the evisceration complaints range right now from they've cut Neil's balls off. Trinity is the one, all this stuff, and it's like, and I said to you, I go, I loved it, but I know why people are gonna hate it.
Well, I mean, there's even things where I love
Mhm.
the fact that they incorporated that. Keanu Reeves is in his mid to late 50s now.
Yeah.
It's like, can't you fly? There's the great. I can't do that anymore. There was
That was
there was
great.
I mean, it was great. What I love
Yeah.
about this,
Yeah.
and this review says, the reason I picked this review is because it says so many things I want to say. Casting the previous films as in-world video games allows The Matrix Resurrections to function as a refreshingly heavy-handed rebuke of the IP-driven reboot culture that produced the film, where the future is increasingly viewed through the franchise lenses of the past, trapping fans in a corporate-controlled dream world where their fandom is constantly rewarded with new product. The video games are the chosen medium for the Matrix Resurrection satire is icing on the cake, an entire medium defined by the illusion of choice, a culture built around the falsehood that megacorporations care about what their customers think when they have the data to show that every outrage du jour will still result in the same record-breaking profits. As one of Thomas Anderson's colleagues bluntly puts it, I'm a geek. I was raised by machines. And I was, the line, there's a line that the Merovingian says, the old homeless Merovingian, and I forget I forget the line, but at the time it was like, don't you understand? I mean, something like, this is a franchise something, and I laughed out loud. And I just thought that,
Yeah.
I mean, to me, if I was reading this story as a novel, I would have loved it. I mean, I did really, really like it, but there's just and there's people in the chat here going, I'm reading far more into the movie than was there. And I'm like, have you?
No.
It's so funny because there have been books written. I have books. I have like 4 books about the philosophy of the Matrix. And it's like, talk about reading more into what was there. I mean, my God, the Matrix franchise has existed to give people fuel for their college PhD dissertations on what is real and what is not. And the book Simulacrum, whatever the book that people in the chat and now people are going, you're reading way too much into this movie. I'm like,
Hey.
wow. It used to be that people wrote books about what was in these films, but this, not anymore. And what's so funny to me is the reaction to this movie has made it even more meta than I felt that it was while we were watching it.
I mean, first I was very entertained, right? It's a good film. Is it great? I don't know if it's great like The Matrix, but it was good. And then there were some great moments, and there were some funny moments, and and then because of the nostalgia factor, I was like, I loved all the nostalgia stuff. There's a lot to like about it. Yeah, I mean, I want to see it again, but just like with The Matrix, you had to see it again and again.
Right.
It was definitely heady. There was a lot going on. And again, the Wachowski, she turned some stuff upside down, and some stuff she kept the same. And the biggest thing is, and this is a spoiler, is that Trinity is the one, or they are the one. And people have problems with that, and I have no problem with that.
No, I mean, it was their love. I mean, and it's even said, I mean, in this divisive time, that their love was something that within the, here's what I also loved about this movie, is that there is a truce between the machines and humanity. You know, now we've got the machines, various machine entities are working for the humans, and they've built a new matrix. But I love the idea, and they don't hammer this home, but much of humanity has opted to stay in the matrix in this film.
Yeah.
It's not like they're no longer, the humans are the humans in the quote unquote real world are no longer trying to liberate humanity, because the people that are in those batteries that are in the matrix have chosen to be there. You know, these people are like, yep, we're here because we want to be. And I feel like, I mean, that's the most damning thing of all about this film, is that, my God, you know, if you can have, there's a great shot in the film where Thomas Anderson is eating a steak. It's in the montage during the Jefferson airplane. And it shows him eating the steak, and it's a callback to Joey Pantoliano's scene where he's like, I want to go back into the Matrix. I want to eat steak. I want to be somebody who's important.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I'm like, that
Cypher.
Thomas Anderson is Cypher. They gave him the life that Cypher wanted. He's an important game designer. He gets to eat steak.
You're right.
I mean, and to think that that's not that I'm reading into this movie. No, this is very intentional. When I was watching this, it's all right there. And I mean, they even linger on a shot of him taking a bite of steak.
Yeah, the steak was rare. Yeah,
and I'm just like, he's Cypher. He's become Joey Pants' character.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, and you find out that, of course, after both Trinity and Neo were killed, that the machine world rebuilt them. You know, rebuilt their bodies and reanimated their corpses and whatever, and then put them into this special they could never touch, but they were, and they're the most powerful of all the batteries, you know, and it's because of their love, and the machines don't quite understand any of that shit. They just know it's real. But I just love the fact that they took Cypher's advice, and here you go, Neo, you know, here you go, Thomas Anderson, you're back, you're our understanding of what humanity wanted, and the fact that half of humanity would give up being human to be in the Matrix willingly. I mean, I thought that was damning. Like, wow, because that's where we're at right now.
That's where we're at right now.
We're out right now. Like, give me the virtual worlds that I'm creating for myself. And I all of that, I was chuckling and I was thoroughly enjoying myself while I was watching this movie.
You know, it made me think too, like how Trinity was the one who found and believed in Neo to be the one in the Matrix. So, you know, it was always there, and this was a beautiful continuation of that. You know, and so because I know that's a big problem. The other thing I wanted to talk about, which I thought I would have a problem with, was God, what's the actor's name? Plays the therapist, the Doogie Howser.
Neil Patrick Harris.
Yeah. He was great.
He was
my
great.
God.
Especially as the movie went on.
Especially as the movie went on, he was fantastic. You know.
Yeah, I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed him a lot. You know, it's interesting. There's a lot of people firing in. A lot of people want to comment. Efren Guzman, who I love, sends in a super chat and says, two of the most influential YouTube sensations, the notorious R&B and Polly, the Latino slant. What are your favorite Christmas memories? One Love.
Wow. One Love. Thanks.
My favorite Christmas memories. Well, being a Jew, my favorite Christmas memories are... No, I mean, I've often found my favorite Christmas memory was I was with a very good friend of mine on Christmas Eve at a bar overlooking Elliott Bay in Seattle, and it was just me and him in a bar with the bartender, and I hadn't seen him in a number of years, and we were just catching up after I'd moved to California, but I'd gone back to Seattle to see him. And he had gone into the military and became a Special Forces Green Beret medic. And we were overlooking the water. It was cold. and we were just sharing a pitcher of Hefeweizen and catching up. And I had never had Hefeweizen before. This is in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I loved Hefeweizen when in Seattle was such a craft beer town, but I had left to move to L.A., and it was just him and I and the bartender. No one else was in the bar. Christmas Eve, sharing a pitcher of Hefeweizen with slice of lemon and just catching up with an old friend. And I don't know why that was the first thing that popped into my mind, but that was, and he and I are friends to this day. We do the Crisis Medicine series together, and that was a Christmas memory I had. I don't know if it was real. Maybe in my mind, I've conjured up this memory. Yeah.
Well, if we are in the Matrix, then there is some genius to the Matrix for me, because my grandmother's tamales are a work of art, and I've had them for many, many years. I don't think she's able to make them. She's still with us. God bless her. But tamales. Tamales.
It's funny, Christmas screams tamales, doesn't it?
I'm gonna
in LA it does.
Back. Yeah, I'm gonna be back in your hood, getting tamales. I believe Christmas Day or the day after. So I'll definitely got to throw you some.
Oh well, if you're in the hood, I'll come visit you.
Yeah, man. So yeah, thank you, Ephraim.
Yeah, that's good. And sends us a tip. Thank you. Sean's World sends in a super chat and says, I don't like the new Matrix movie. It's too meta, and I feel like I love the Matrix not for the action, but for the philosophy. My favorite sci-fi movie of all time. Anyway, happy holiday, brothers. Well, I mean, what's interesting is I feel that there's a lot of valid criticisms, I think, that have been leveled at this movie, but I think what's interesting is when I sit down to watch a film, I take it on its own terms. I'm not comparing and contrasting, because this whole movie it's almost as much about the intervening 20 years. When The Matrix came out, the internet was a very different place. People were on AOL message boards. And now the internet it's like a whole internet epoch has happened. There's been a million years of internet evolution from the time the first Matrix came out till today.
Well, look at what we're doing.
Right.
Look at what me and you are doing, and look at what the chat is doing. That is straight out of the Matrix.
Well, how about the fact that you and I had never met? And even that, maybe seeing the movie with you sitting next to me, it was like, what a wild, like, I've met you, we've been streaming together, I've known you. We've had conversations with people like Edward James Olmos, the entire cast of Blood In, Blood Out, Stand and Deliver, Danny Trejo. We've done all these things, but we had never met. When I stood up today in the theater, because I was there before you were, when I stood up, you said, hey man, you're tall. Like, you and I are like the same. Well, you might be a little taller than me even, and you were like, you're tall.
No, I think you're a little tall. Well, I think we're both over 6'1", 6'2". So,
yeah, 6'1". Yeah, I'm 6'1". But it was so funny. You're like, hey, and I've often wondered, like, for instance, who I adore. I've been streaming with her. We've been talking. I have no idea if she's 5 feet tall or 6 feet tall. No clue. I have no idea. You and yet she and I have been talking for hours and hours and hours. I have no clue. None. Zero.
We were talking about that, and then our love for Mexican Iron Man. And earlier this year, when he was going through some physical challenges and then getting ready to move to South Carolina, he was still living in California. It was just so important for me to help out, but I wanted to go and meet him in person. And I got that chance.
Yeah.
And it just kind of cements things. It's different. And yeah, it's like we've been communicating through the Matrix here, man. It's really strange.
Well, this review goes on to say that in the movie, the Resistance learns it may be possible to free Trinity as well, although by means never tried before. It's a mission that isn't likely to succeed, but in this strange new future, it's the only one worth living and dying for. In pivoting to a mission to save the theoretical Trinity, Matrix Resurrections takes the messaging of the original film a step further. It's not enough to free your mind. In fact, it's worthless if you don't unplug in the interest of connecting and loving those around you. And look at this. We live, here's the Black Mirror, the TV series Black Mirror talks about the fact we're surrounded by these screens. And they were name checking, like the scene in the elevator that's in the trailer, where everyone is just looking into their phones, and Thomas Anderson looks up and sees everyone reflected.
Great shot.
Looking. It's in the trailer, and it's like, that's it, man. We in the real world we're every one of us is creating our own. We're on Instagram putting filters on ourselves to make us look different than we really are. Like it was so, and when you'd see the reflections of the old Neo, the way he looked to everyone else, and it was really interesting because we don't know how other people see Thomas Anderson except in those. I mean, they mention it, and it's done very subtly, but it's certainly there. And when you go back and watch it again, there's a lot more of those reflections than I thought there were. And
I got to see it again. I mean, on that level, I mean, it was filmed quite nicely,
but it was filmed very differently. I mean, the real world is much more colorful and bright and vibrant as opposed to sort of the black and the green. Like when you look at the original Matrix, they really want you to know that when you're in the Matrix, there's this green tinge to everything, because back then it was all on your screens. Everything was, it had the text of the green, the whole. It's crazy.
The tint.
Yeah, that green tint.
The tint, and then that tint, that look. I mean, it was like in a dozen films afterwards for years. For years, man. But yeah, there were some shots I really loved. Even the opening shot where it was a pool's reflection of a cop's foot.
That was awesome, and that
was cool, man.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Because then it was like, oh God, is this when Trinity kicks ass? And it was, and then it wasn't. But it was a different purview the whole time.
Yeah,
I love that. And there was for me, there was a lot to love about this. And I'm going to read a comment real quick from my Twitter. Probably the only guy that likes it with us right now. He's deleted scene says the article comparing it to The Last Jedi killed it. Now every chat stream for a week will dump on it. The net has decided. Cancel culture going the other way. Very disheartening. Good night.
Well, that first of all, the Last Jedi comparison is ridiculous. Like somebody came up with this, and I'm like, this has nothing to do with The Last Jedi at all. It's not an apt comparison in any way, shape, or form. But what's really interesting to me, I'll tell you what I really find interesting about this movie too. The Wachowskis, Los Bros Wachowskis, have both transitioned in the time they made the original Matrix, and they are both they're trans women now.
Yeah.
And Lily and Lana Wachowski, and that alone makes this movie fascinating to me to watch.
Yeah.
Because they themselves have totally transitioned, and in a time where we're talking about how do we perceive people and pronouns and all this, even the reality of who people are, their own identities have changed. And that to me is fascinating. And whether whatever you think about people's sexuality or whatever, the fact is you have two creators of the Matrix, They themselves have undergone a transformation. And let's face it, people who are trans are binary. They're going from male to female. There's no nebulous pronouns. They've made a binary choice. They've gone from being male to female. And that also is fascinating. And to know
Well,
what they've gone through in their
yeah.
personal lives, and to
Mhm.
see how what they thought the Matrix was when they made the original movie to where they are now, that also needs to be taken into consideration, and I find that fascinating.
You know, it we don't know what it's like to live someone's eyes until, you say walk in my shoes.
Yeah.
And you know, first of all, I just don't judge a book by the cover. I mean, it goes back to some old school shit, right? Treat people how you want to be treated. Don't judge a book by its cover. And it just it helps me, with everything, as far as just, especially now with all our entertainment. It's like I'm always gonna give it a chance. um I didn't feel anything was shoved down my throat. Maybe I was blind, I don't know,
No, it
but
was not. No, it
you
it,
know
it, it
and it
look.
definitely wasn't in the original Matrix, because who knows where they're at in their journey as filmmakers, as people, as entities in their bodies trying to figure shit out. They gave us the Matrix. I mean, they gave us the Matrix. They gave us the Matrix. Two
Well, I mean,
trans women. Okay, cool.
and not only that, but I mean, in terms of dealing with reality, and
Mhm.
altering, they literally altered themselves and changed their own perspective in many different ways. I mean, that to me is exciting to see what a filmmaker like Lily Wachowski and Lana Wachowski. We get Lana, but
Alana.
Lily's
Mhm.
still doing work as well. They did
Mhm.
a Sense8 with
Yep.
J. Michael Straczynski, and so we're
Mhm.
getting some work from these filmmakers. And I still look. I am a Wachowski fan. I loved Speed Racer. Hell, I love Cloud Atlas. And watch, if I
Yep.
say this, I'm going to say something. People are going to be like, "Oh, I'll never listen to Burnett again." I like Jupiter Ascending. I mean,
No,
you've
was that the one that was that the TV show that got canceled,
no, that was
or the
Sense8.
movie?
Jupiter Ascending. Jupiter Ascending is a Disney princess movie. People don't know.
Ah,
I mean, literally, Mila
gotcha.
Kunis is actually cleaning toilets at the beginning of that movie, and she finds out
Okay.
she's a space princess. It's a
Oh, is
Disney.
that the one with
Yeah,
Channing
Channing
Tatum?
Tatum is an elf who skates around on light. I
Okay.
mean, if you take that shit seriously, if you're not looking at that as a Japanese animated film. By the way, you came in a little late. You missed. There was a trailer for a Japanese animated film before this called Belle,
Uh-huh.
Belle, which is like a
Okay.
virtual Beauty and the Beast, which I thought was great. I'm like, I'm in. I'm gonna go see that shit in IMAX. I don't know what it's about, but in some virtual world, there's a Beauty and the Beast myth thing happening. I'm like, heck yeah, count me in. I'm going to see that.
I
Um,
haven't seen Jupiter Ascending, but I saw V for Vendetta. I saw Bound. I mean,
Jupiter
yeah.
Ascending. Look, it's almost indefensible, but I liked it. I
Yeah.
mean, there are things.
But
I
you know
love
the
Star
the,
Crash. People are
the
like, Rob, that movie's not
listen,
great.
we crapped on Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions when it
Hmm.
came out. We considered it just so horrible. And then with time, it's like, oh, okay, well, it's not that bad. Um, it's just interesting. It's just interesting because how just the reaction to this film. Um, yeah, some of our friends just really hate it.
Oh, I think I haven't seen anybody, anyone that we're streaming with. I'm
Hmm.
already getting made fun of relentlessly on Twitter. Um,
Cool, cool.
um, but in another thing in this
Yeah.
in this
Hmm.
review,
Yep.
Matrix Resurrections relishes in being a lighter, more self-aware film than its predecessors. A movie about big feelings rendered beautifully. While legendary cinematographer Bill Pope is also among the talent that doesn't return this time, the team
Mm.
of Danelle Masakosi and John Toll, one of the great cinematographers of all time, bring a more painterly approach to Resurrections. Warm colors invade scenes from both the Matrix and the real world. The latter looks more vibrant than ever without the blue hues that characterized it in the original trilogy, while its digital counterpart has now changed to the point where it's painfully idyllic, a world of bright colors and sunlight that is difficult to leave. That's the thing. They made the Matrix look so beautiful. Embodying those changes, I loved Jonathan Groff as a reawakened Smith, Neo's dark opposite within the Matrix. Groff, who steps in for a role indelibly portrayed by Hugo Weaving, is the audacity of the Matrix Resurrections personified. He nails a character so iconic that recasting it feels like hubris, yet also finds new shades to bring to an antagonistic role in a world where villains only appear human when in fact they're often ideas. And ideas are so hard to wage war against. If the old Matrix films are about the lies we are told, the new Matrix is about the lies we choose. That's what I loved about this movie. In spite of its questions, 1999's The Matrix hinges on the notion that there is such a thing as objective truth, and that people would want to see it. On the cusp of 2022, objective truth, this is what I was saying earlier, is no longer agreed upon as pundits, politicians, and tech magnates each present their vision of what's real and then aggressively market it to the masses. Our current crisis, then, is whatever you choose it to be. You just have to choose a side in the war, one to be us and another to be them. If we don't know what's real, one character asks Neo, how do we resist? I think that's in the movie. That's what this movie is talking about. And it's my God, it's such a reflection of where we're at as a people, as a race of human beings, the one race of people on this planet. There's only one race of us. And I think this film was asking us these questions. You know, it harks back. I keep talking about this on this channel. I've been talking about it for years. But there's a book written by this Israeli historian, Yuval Harari. And he wrote two books. The first one was Sapiens, and the next book was Homo Deus. And Sapiens is it's a condensed 100,000-year history of mankind, and basically up to today. And at the end of the book, he says, look, we're better off now than we've ever been. Despite all of our problems, we've been horrible. We're a horrible people. We have tens of thousands of years of horrors we've perpetrated against one another. But there's less famine, there's less war, we're better off now than we've ever been. Life expectancy, even though it's dropped a little bit because of COVID, we're better off now. But at the end of this book, Yuval Harari asks the question to anyone who reads it. And by the way, you should read both of these books. He asks, the question now is, humanity needs to understand or answer the question, who do we want to be? Who do we want to be? As a species, as one race of beings on this planet, what is it we want to do as human beings? Are we just going to post Instagram selfies with filtered pictures for the rest of our lives? What are we going to do, man? Are we going to create art? Are we going to better our world? Are we going to argue amongst ourselves about what's real and what's not? About our petty squabbles? What are we going to do? And I think it's a great question. And then he went on and wrote a book called Homo Deus, which is about the future, about what are we going to do? And I think this movie is asking these questions. They're there. We might not have the bullet time action scenes that everyone's looking for. As a matter of fact, the fact that it's all shaky cam, which is the antithesis of what the Matrix was, because it was all composed in the Matrix. It's, I don't know.
Yeah. I think on that level, Wachowski was very bold in this. And I think on a lot of levels succeeded. I love that. I love that about this film.
Me too.
That it wasn't safe. It was not a rehash at all. It couldn't have been.
No.
And it was fantastic. I mean, yeah, there was actually very little action in this movie. Let's just be real here. The pace was good. It moved, and there was a a couple fights here and there, but I think what was so interesting, staging wise, was the final showdown inside the coffee shop. Right? It was so strange. It was very much like a play, like they were on a stage, bro. The lighting was very theatrical,
Yeah.
and everyone was dressed dark because it was mostly SWAT team guys. There was something very I don't know what the other than theatrical, as far as in a theater with these swarms around our characters and Neil Patrick Harris commanding them. I really like that. I really like that, and it wasn't like these crazy super martial arts moves, and there was some of that there, but there was also something very confined and very like um I don't know, almost operatic. I don't know if that makes sense.
I
I
mean,
don't know if I'm making sense.
no, but I think you're right, because there was a lot of, I think that the in the original Matrix and the two other movies, all of the action, a lot of wire work, and they had a little bit of that. I mean, people running around walls and things like that. For the most part, it was just cut fights, shaky cam. There wasn't any of the Matrix action you would expect, because that action was, all of that was about the characters that had understood the real world that they're living in was heightened, so they knew, free. They kept going back to like Morpheus going, "Free your mind," and they played on the idea that you see Morpheus jump from the top of one building to another in the original Matrix, and in this, it's like Thomas Anderson walked out to kill himself and he didn't fall. It wasn't like he jumped. It was a different Matrix. It was not.
Yeah.
It was a new. The whole thing. The whole Matrix was different, so it didn't work in the same way. By the way, Tom Jr. Jackson, one of my favorite people, says, "Rob and Polly, good to see you. I watched Matrix 4 at 5 a.m. and then again while having lunch.
Wow.
So much fun. I loved it."
Wow, cool. We're not alone.
No, Nick Barkins sends in a super chat and says, "Rob, what did you think about how meta this movie was, especially in the beginning parts? I stayed spoiler-free for this and was not expecting that." Well, Nick, I mean, I knew it was meta, but I didn't know how meta. And I loved it, because how could it not be? It's so funny, because when The Matrix came out, it was almost like, look at what the coming technological age might do to us. And like almost 20 years on, I mean, The Matrix came out in 99, so we're 22 years away from Matrix. And I don't even think The Matrix I don't think the Wachowskis back in 99 or 98 when they were making it could have even imagined what the internet has done to us.
No one did. No one.
No.
No one.
No.
In that, it was also like the gadgets too. You gotta remember, like when they sent him that cell phone in the FedEx box, right? And it went, and everyone in the audience was like, "Whoa, that's
right."
Oh God. We're over that stuff.
I mean,
now.
we didn't get the first iPhone until 8 years after The Matrix came out.
It's really this like the other Matrix films, they're gonna be dissecting and discussing these films for years to come.
Well,
you can't say that about a lot of films right now.
What I find interesting is I'm looking at all these people, because I've only read monstrous hatred toward this movie. And I ask, I'm like, well, first of all, I come at it like I go into all movies wanting to love them. Because it's so hard to make any of this stuff. But I'm also like, I go into this and I think, okay, when people are hating on this, I'm like, what? I always want to know, like, what did you want? Like with The Last Jedi, I understand. I'm not a fan of the Disney sequel trilogy, because those stories were based on corporate needs, and they're not true stories in my mind. and the fact that you go from the end of Return of the Jedi,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go to the Last Jedi. Luke was only in the last 5 minutes of Force Awakens.
Right.
To me, that's a betrayal of a character. I mean, straight up.
Well, but they're saying that Neo's betrayed.
But he's not. He's
not.
I mean, Neo's not betrayed. I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, that's the whole thing is a character study on where Neo is at now. And that's why
where the Matrix hit his ass.
Right. And what the new version of the Matrix has done.
The Force Awakens was we gave it a pass because it was basically Star Wars. It was basically New Hope.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Not,
but the funny thing but Neo died. It's not like Luke, who Return of the Jedi, at the end of Return of the Jedi, Luke is finally a full-fledged Jedi Knight. He faced his father.
Right.
He faced down Vader. He defeated the Emperor and Vader himself. He threw away his lightsaber. I'll never join you. And then he's turned into a mad hermit that's denounced the galaxy. Dumb.
Yeah, try to kill his nephew.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, that's a complete betrayal of the original Star Wars trilogy, which I completely understand. And the thing is, it's not unforgiven. Like in Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven, we've already seen Clint Eastwood. He was the man with no name. He was the outlaw Josie Wales. He was High Plains Drifter. We've seen an entire decades worth. He was Rawhide. We've seen decades of Clint Eastwood being a kick-ass gunfighter. So when you get to Unforgiven in '92 and he's the grizzled old has-been, that makes sense. I'll buy that. But with Luke, it's like, give me a break. You can't go, if you're a kid watching Star Wars for the first time and you go to Return of the Jedi and you're like, oh, Mom, I want to see Force Awakens. I think the greatest betrayal for young children that our culture has perpetrated in pop culture is episode 6 to episode 7 and episode 8. Because, boy, if you're a young kid and you're a big fan of Luke Skywalker, I can't wait. You're like 7 years old watching Star Wars for the first time and you watch Force Awakens and you see Luke at the end and then you watch Last Jedi. I mean, my God, you're 8, 9, 10. When you're going to be traumatized forever. And no one thought of that. But
we
Disney
all
did
were.
that.
We all were, and that's this is now the what, 5 years after, 6 years, 5 years. I can't remember, but the knee-jerk reaction to everything is from a negative default. Like that's where a lot of people have set their default at.
Yeah,
you can't blame them, but it's like, how are you going to enjoy anything, or give anything a chance? Me and you, we even talked about, last week we talked about West Side Story, but I get it. Why people have become so jaded.
My man Dieter Bastian in the chat, who I stream with every day, says the action put nothing new and exciting on my plate. That was the point. We've come so far since the first Matrix. What do you say, Rob, about 007? It went from setting trends to following them. Matrix Resurrections, exactly. I totally disagree with that. Dieter, I disagree. And by the way, I mean, just so you know, I bought this shit.
Nice.
I have to have every Bond film.
Nice.
I might not like this, but I own it. It's fine. I didn't go for some steelbook or whatever.
Sorry, Rob. I had a great time.
I know
that
people.
movie
I
in
know
the
people.
theater.
I'm a Bond fan, but no, I think this movie didn't. This does do things that other movies haven't done. This movie is so weird and self-reflexive and bizarre, and what it's
and funny
and funny. I mean, there's a lot going on here. Man sends in a super chat and says, my man, Robert, need more dog videos. You know what? I'm going to make more dog videos, and I'm going to make them first for our members of the channel, because I promised people that before. I haven't done that.
Nice.
I'm going to start making more walking that people like those. That was just some random walking the dogs to Lucky Baldwin's. People love that shit. I will make more of those. Richard Ganther sends in a tip and says, wow, is this really? He has 1 of 6. 1 of 6. I don't understand the hate for this film. This film shows us the concepts they talked about in the original trilogy. The reset, the peace between humans and machines, that even in the face of the cyclical nature of that peace, Neo did make a difference by, for the first time, allowing humans and sentience to coexist. It provided commentary on how we consider reality, the emerging metaverse, and how that is so much more physically tangible now to some than we considered it 20 years ago. What we soon may consider sentience has changed since the first film. A commentary on aging, absolutely, and the treadmill of society and generations. Man, Richard, you're nailing it. And yes,
we didn't even bring up aging. We didn't even bring up mortality.
Dude, I mean, we got to talk about that too. And yes, some of the things that got me thinking about were the same things the original film got me thinking about, but in a different way, from a different angle that I would have considered without this film. And to those saying we are thinking too deeply, half the stuff people idolize about the original film aren't there. The genius of the Matrix films is that they are a springboard for philosophy and thought. I love this film, and it's definitely a worthy installment in the saga, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Rob. And that's what he says. Well, thanks.
Beautiful.
I appreciate that, Richard.
That was a super chat or an email?
That was a super chat. That was a series of super chats. And my man, Kaz Graphics, the official cheesemonger, I know people might laugh, the official cheesemonger of this channel, who lives in my hometown of Seattle. Actually, no. He relocated to Kirkland, where my longtime comic book store was growing up. Kaz Graphics says, I love this chat. Well, Kaz, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Kevin, the comic doctor, says, hey, guys, I was going to pass on this new Matrix installment, as most pundits have been bashing it, but your insights have swayed me. It seems like this film has a lot to say. I will be watching it very soon. Have a great Christmas, and I hope you had a great Hanukkah. Well, Kevin the Comic Doctor, thank you for your support on the channel. And it's been great. Another person I've become friends with, a guy I very much appreciate. If you have not subscribed to Kevin the Comic Doctor's channel, he does a lot of great comic restoration, and he shows, I mean, he is restoring, he doesn't, actually, pardon me, he doesn't restore comics. He accentuates them, doesn't change them at all, but will press them for you, clean them for you, and when you send them in to get slabbed, help you make your comics even that much more valuable. He does a great job. Kaz Graphics comes back with another super chat and says, I thought The Matrix Resurrections was amazing. But dude, Denzel in Macbeth, I saw what an artistically amazing movie. One of the Coen brothers has made the tragedy of Macbeth with Denzel. I mean, my God,
Man.
I'll watch anything Denzel Washington is in. I can't wait to see it.
There's about 4 dramas that are on my list, and that's one of them.
Can't wait.
Being the Ricardos, I got that one. I saw that one obviously last week and did a review on that. And I mean, there's some amazing leading actor performances this year. Nick Cage and Pig.
Dude, I know.
So I want to see Macbeth, The Killing.
Yeah, I really do too. You know, I saw him. He was on Stephen Colbert a couple of weeks ago, and they were like throwing Shakespeare quotes back at each other. And I've loved Denzel Washington. I think he's one of our great actors. And, all the way back to Glory, he was in Glory, and Matthew Broderick was the star, and Denzel Washington was, the secondary character. And to see him, I mean, that guy, he can do no wrong. And I have to say, Denzel Washington, I think back to kick-ass movies he was in, like Man on Fire, Crimson Tide, even those movies. Training Day. Oh,
that's what he won the award for.
Come on. Get that up in there. Get that up in there. So good.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Latoya,
he's a movie star.
He is. Latoya T, or as we like to call her, Coco Tulip. She has her own clothing brand, which, by the way, might be the coolest name for any clothing brand ever. Coco Tulip. I love that so much.
Nice.
And if you want to talk about Trinity and Neo, one of my favorite people that I've met this year was Lael Rockwell, who I stream with. But my God, talk about a love beyond all time. LaToya T and Lael Rockwell. I mean, Lael loves LaToya more than, and he will shout to the world how much he loves her. And I love nothing more. I'm there for that. I love the posts. And by the way, she's a strikingly gorgeous woman, but she's also a big geek, self-professed geek, and allows him to have an entire basement full of DTOFs with beautiful Hot Toys figures. So the two of you,
what a great
thumbs
lady.
up. So thank you, LaToya. Sean's World. Sean's World says, oh, by the way, I didn't mention what she said. LaToya T says, a Jupiter ascending reference. Well, I hope you appreciate that, because a lot of people are like, they just unsubscribed from me. They're like, fuck Burnett, I'm out.
Right. Right.
Sean's World says, still love you, RMB, even though you like Jupiter ascending. It's okay. I still love you, Sean. Yeah, Ron C. sends in a super chat and says, living in San Francisco, I got to see the helicopter scene shot in downtown SF. I had no choice. The city closed down the Embarcadero BART station for an hour. Well, wow. I mean, I have to say, both Carrie-Anne Moss and Keanu Reeves, they did jump off the building, and they were suspended in the air, and you could tell, even though there was wire removal. Spoiler alert! That was an amazing scene when they're hanging there, and that was real. They really did that. Yeah. It was dope.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. That was pretty scary.
Jorge Bernal says, love the film and the approach. Had enough surprises to keep me guessing. Hopefully, the sequel does more visual storytelling and less monologues. Yeah, but have you seen Matrix Reloaded? The architect scene with Neo at the end when there's monologue.
A lot of talking, man.
A lot of monologue.
A lot of talking. So is that set? Is that there's already another movie?
No, I don't know.
Gotcha.
I would imagine that this movie is not going to burn up the box office because it's day and date.
It's going to get destroyed.
It's day and date with HBO Max. I mean, hell, I came home and watched it again. And,
you never know. You never know. I think you never know. I think right now, Encanto and Ghostbusters are riding really well off of Spidey's coattails.
Yep,
because their uptick went up, especially Encanto, which I highly recommend for families to see.
I haven't seen it. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah,
it looks great. Really, I thought the trailer looked great. It looks great.
It's really the music is great and real fast. Lin-Manuel Miranda, I think he's got 3 movies now that are in contention with each other.
I know.
In the Heights, Encanto,
Tick Tick Boom that he directed. Dude, Tick Tick Boom is still my favorite movie of the year.
Yeah, that's still on my list. I can't believe I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, you're gonna wait till you see it. It's so good. Yeah. It's so good. And Zachary P says Matrix 4 is the last Jedi of the Matrix. 3 is better. Zachary, respectfully, I disagree, sir. Yeah. Douglas A. Burton sends in a super chat and says, I just left the theater. The Matrix 4 had some shaky potential as a self-aware film, but this flick really goes nowhere. I disagree with that too. He goes on to say Matrix 4 pretends to have outgrown its source material. I don't think so. I mean, I don't think it's commenting on where our culture has gone. And I was there for that. I mean, you talked about aging. We didn't even touch on that.
Yeah.
I mean, Mr. Anderson, you help your landlady take out the garbage. I thought it did. It was commenting on aging as well, because that was absolutely something that, like how Thomas Anderson was viewed by other people. We still, I still think I'm 12 years old. Like I go to Elizabeth. She was always like, "You have such gray hair." I'm like, "No, man, my hair's like sandy blonde." And she's like, "No, it's not. You have gray hair." I'm like, "No, man, come on."
That's
I mean, I still feel like I get an action figure. I'm like, "Oh my god, look at this action figure. This is
Well,
awesome."
we were in an action figure store today. Yeah.
I know we went. That's what we did. And I'm like, part of my problem in life is that I haven't changed since I was 12. And not only that, we're now monetizing action figures and science fiction movies, and I never thought I'd be on the interwebs worldwide talking about stuff I've loved since I was a kid.
It's next chapter. The Wachowskis are older. It's another tale, and how they're seeing society right now. I think it was wonderful.
Yeah, I mean,
that's just, and at the same time, I get why people won't like it, but that's all right.
But you know what? It's not just disliking. There's a vehement hatred.
I was trying to be, yeah.
But
Yeah.
I find that interesting because it's like, here's the thing: if you love The Matrix, you have one of the creators of and the same thing happened. Like, look, I think George Lucas lost touch with humanity a little bit. And I think the problem with the Star Wars prequels, I've said, I think they're not good movies, but they're good Star Wars in that.
Good stories.
I think the stories are good, but the execution isn't, because George Lucas, he was already tenuously, he was a geek. He was a introverted kid.
The stories were already there too. In his mind for decades.
And I think that, I mean, you could take those scripts, you could take the scripts as written, even with the sand and all that crap. You could give another director the exact same Star Wars scripts, and you could make really good movies out of them. The problem was Lucas was so enamored of digital technology that all you needed was different performances from the actors, and you could make those movies even better than they are.
Like a Rodriguez.
Somebody that knew people. Like,
well,
those movies make Sam Jackson bad.
Yeah, there's a story in Austin Chronicle just came out, and I did a video on it just right before we came on, where Rodriguez talks about connecting with Lucas, and Lucas showing him Attack of the Clones footage, because Rodriguez was working on Spy Kids up at Skywalker Sound, and what a great story that was.
Right.
That helped him, that propelled Rodriguez to go into the tech, so these guys just they disappear in their own stories, and in the tech, it's I mean, it happens. You forget the story sometimes,
Wait a minute, I gotta say that there's people in the chat. Bob Birkin says that I push a shameful, lame movie like Shang-Chi. And Gallows the Media says, I usually appreciate the optimism, but this was terrible and insulting.
Ooh.
And I'm like, are you talking about us? Like, talking? I mean, I loved Shang-Chi. And I am a wuxia film fan from the Shaw Brothers box set that just came out. I got that. I mean, I loved Shang-Chi. I thought it was, we talked about that today. I thought it was wildly entertaining. Yeah. And, I have a long history for 45 years watching wuxia films. And I thought that Marvel embracing the wuxia genre was quite interesting. And with this, I mean, I'm like, I really like this film. And I do not apologize for liking the movie. I even watched Dan Murrell's review. I love Dan Murrell. I think Dan Murrell is a terrific guy. And I watched his review of this film. He didn't like this movie much either, and he and I usually agree. And a lot of his points, I think, were valid. But it all comes down to, I got out of this movie what I was looking to get out of it. I think that it comes down to it's like when Luke goes into the cave in Empire Strikes Back in Dagobah, And he says to Yoda, well, what's in there? And Yoda says, only what you take with you. You know, and I think what I took with me into this movie was I had no idea other than the intellectual curiosity of wondering, where is Lana Wachowski going to take us? Where are we at in 2021 as opposed where we were at in 1999? And I was given an experience that I found fascinating, and I enjoyed it. And I don't apologize for that, but it's what I took with me into this movie, and I got out of it what I wanted to get out of it. That doesn't mean that my opinion's more valid than anyone else's, but I feel like nowadays people have decided their opinions about movies before they even see them. And with all of the punditry that goes on, that people forget to watch films on their own terms. And it's like, if one of the creators of The Matrix comes back and makes another Matrix movie, you must afford them the respect of watching what they've given us and wonder, okay, why? Why did they make, at least give them the benefit of the doubt and try and examine their decisions and look in. And by the way, if you reject them and hate them after you've watched a film, I'm like, great. Hate what you want. Don't like it. I will never tell anybody what they should and shouldn't think. I think that I'm stating, and we are here stating our opinion. And our opinion is just ours. So,
yeah, someone asked in the chat why I look green reptilian. When I want to see what you guys are saying in the chat, so I switched to the YouTube screen, and it, which is white, you know.
oh yeah.
But yeah, that's funny. Yeah, it's all about where we're at going into seeing films or listening to music or reading a book or looking at art. I mean, it's so based on the beholder, you know. And you know, if you're coming in hot, then you know that's how you're going to perceive stuff.
Well, it's funny. I went into this movie. I was curious on an intellectual level where this would take me, and I was rewarded for it, and I thoroughly enjoyed watching it, and I got out of it what I wanted to get out of it. Actually, there's okay. Ron C sends in a super chat and says, having two helicopters flying below standard levels was a scary moment. I can hear explosions in the distance from the BART station. Awesome. That means you were there when there was some great people took behind the scenes footage when they were shooting stuff. And yeah, they had actual explosions going off on the streets in San Francisco, and they shot it, which is great. Now, this is another thing that I loved in the movie. SVS Guru 2000 sends in a super chat and says, my favorite moment was when Trinity's fake husband and son are named Chad and Brandon. Yeah. So on the nose. I loved it. I love that because for those of you who don't know your incel speak, they're always talking about Chads. And I thought the character that the actor, I don't know the actor, I don't know who he is, but he's very handsome. He walks in and he's Trinity's husband, and he's such a Chad. I mean, he's such a Chad. And Brandon, that was hilarious. That in itself was so great because of that, the whole incel culture. Chads, of course, are the men to be reviled. You know, the perfect men that all incels hate are Chads. I thought that was great. And again, if you think that we're reading too much into these movies, we're not. I mean, it's all there. It's all purposefully put into the script. Shogun Orta says, I feel people hate Matrix 4 because it's the Star Wars story effect. It was okay, it was good, but it wasn't great, so it sucks. That's interesting. That's right.
Good. That's good.
I like that.
You know, yeah. That's yeah. That's I like that a lot. I thought there were some great moments in a good film.
Yeah, absolutely. Man sends in a super chat and says, "My man, Rob." Well, thank you, man. Man says, "My man, Rob." It's kind of meta. Okay, Mikey Lito, one of my favorite people in the world. Mikey, who is a big musical fan. Mikey says, "Polly,
Yes.
you haven't seen Tick, Tick, Boom? First chance you get, you need to watch this film. Join the party."
I know I'm not much of a Latino slant. I haven't seen Manuel Miranda's Tick Tick Boom. I'm gonna turn in my Mexican card right now, and when I see it, I'll get it back.
Well, it's on Netflix. I mean,
Yeah, it's
it
on
was dropped on
Netflix.
Netflix. You know what? I have to tell you, I like musicals, but I didn't even know much. I wasn't even really aware of what it was, and I just started playing it. I was enchanted in the first 10 minutes, and
Yeah.
it's a great film. It's a truly great movie, and I have to tell you, I've always thought she was cute, but Vanessa Hudgens is great in this movie.
Okay.
I remember her from Spring Breakers. I never watched High School Musical or anything like that, and I even watched the what is it,
I don't even
Architectural
know.
Digest.
I don't even know who she is.
Dude, she's you'll know
She
who
good
she
in the
is.
film?
Oh
Okay.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So much. So
And it's great because I can lust after her because she's in her 30s. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's okay.
perfectly
Like if
fine.
I go into the 20s, I'm like, ooh, that's creepy old man shit. But if I can like look at Vanessa Hudgens and lust after her, as long as 30 is my new cutoff point, like
30. You won't go below 30.
No, actually, I shouldn't really go below 35, but
Yeah, 30.
30. At least I feel I'm not doing something untoward. She's like
Can
32.
can we talk about how beautiful Carrie-Anne Moss looks?
Bruh. And I have to say that, okay, Andrew Caldwell, the actor, who is Neo's, like, he's the guy, like, that's the total bro, and he's in that scene going, let me go ask her, and he says she's a total MILF in the movie. I worked
Right.
with him on a movie called Geography Club. I was the documentarian, so I interviewed him and stuff. It was great to see him in the movie, but yeah, Carrie-Anne Moss, unbelievable. What a beautiful
Yeah.
woman.
Yeah. Trinity, man, she broke a lot of hearts, man. Trinity. Oof.
And amazing. Richard Ganther comes back and says, as you said, so much of the vitriol surrounding this film seems to have been decided before seeing it. I also keep seeing people saying Lana didn't even want to make this film. Well, I call BS. Whatever struggles she might have had, look at the dedication. It's to her folks, her parents. Remember at the end? She dedicates the movie to her mom and dad, who both passed away. And that's, she has even said, the reason she wanted to make the film was because of the grief that she had been feeling. Douglas Burton says, is there any space at all anymore for not liking a film? 1-star territory without the opinion being grouped into hatred? That's a good question. I think there's absolutely spaces for not liking the film, but I would love to hear cogent discourse. If you hate a movie, more power to you, but give me some great intellectual reasoning beyond it sucks. Because look, there's a lot of movies I hate, and I love reading great criticism. I mean, I long for the days of Roger Ebert or my favorite Pauline Kael, or even the reviewers in Cahiers du Cinéma, the French reviewers that then became directors themselves, like Godard and Francois Truffaut. And I have no problem with bad reviews of movies. I just want to read good reviews of bad movies. Oh wait, let me Richard Ganther, he was one of two. Let me read them both together. Richard says, as you said, so much of the vitriol surrounding this film seems to have been decided before seeing it. I also keep seeing people saying Lana didn't even want to make this film. I call BS. Whatever struggles she might have had, look at the dedication. To mom and dad, love is the genesis of everything. Is that something you put on a film which you haven't poured your heart and soul into? And all of this talk about garbage nostalgia. Did people even watch this movie? I would say, I don't know, because it's all there. It's all in the text. And yet, and by the way, I think let me ask you this, Paulie.
Mm-hmm.
I think people, if they don't get what they expected from a movie, there's a lot of people, their knee-jerk reaction is to hate it, as opposed to looking at the film, at what they've gotten, and assess what they have. And now, look, am I saying that this movie is equal to The Matrix? I am not. The Matrix was a groundbreaking, stunning piece of work. This was a film that I would imagine had half the budget, maybe not of the original Matrix. I'm sure this movie cost more than the original Matrix, but half the budget of a normal franchise property. And, you know, Lana made this movie and put her heart and soul into it. And I think we have to take it on its own terms. So, what do you think?
Go see the movie. You know, hate, you know, and hate and this anger. It's so powerful, man. You know, and the way that, you know, even people with you know, an influence on other people, you open that hate a little bit. Let's say you're right. You know, like, as far as like your honest opinion, but you know, level up and elevate your argument to me. Because if you come, you know, with hate points, then it's just like, you know, we can't even have a conversation, man. You know, because you've already decided everything about me, and that's already been happening out there. You know, everyone's decided about, you know, what the other side, you know, thinks and feels and how they operate. And you gotta remember, these are our brothers and sisters.
I know.
Like it or not, these are our brothers and sisters. So, well, yeah.
Midnight's Edge After Dark sends in a super chat and says, "Who's this Polly kid? I like his hat."
Tom, love you, man.
Dean sends in a super chat. Thank you, Dean. I appreciate that. But yeah, I totally agree with what you said. I mean, you know, it's so hard to make movies, and I don't know. I thought this movie was audacious and interesting, and
I can't wait to see it again.
Yeah, and I was watching it again, and I was still enjoying it. Lynch Design. Hello, Lynch Design. By the way, I want to hit you up about tomorrow doing a show. I was out with Polly today, so I want to do a stream today. But tomorrow, if you're down for doing a fully articulated, I would like you to come on the stream.
Nice.
Merry Christmas, says Lynch Design. Happy holidays, gents, and the chat. Hit like, follow, and subscribe if you haven't already. I never say that, but I would like to say hit like, follow, and subscribe to the Latino Slant.
Oh.
You can see, please go to YouTube right now. You can see at Latino Slant. Paulie, where can people find you on YouTube? Where can they like and subscribe to you?
Yeah, it's just the Latino Slant. There's no other show like it, and we are a channel, like a show. You know, we have musicians and filmmakers, actors, hanging out with people like myself and Robert, and then the daily videos are just what is happening in the world of Latino entertainment, arts, and culture. So it's great. And I don't know who it was, but there was a couple people just now that subscribed, and we hit the 2,000 mark just right now.
Well,
thank you.
That's and by the way, anyone watching this chat right now, there's I think there's 300 people watching right now. If you could go to the Latino Slant and subscribe, I gotta say, I mean, I've had some great times streaming with you this year. You definitely elevate the discourse and you provide some really great content. I've particularly enjoyed a lot of the music you featured. You've had a lot of live music on your channel. I was on a stream the other day and watched a great woman in Texas. She was there performing. She did a great song. I mean, you really promote Latino artists, and you've got great stuff on your channel. So please go to Latino Slant on YouTube. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Yeah, if you want to do that with my channel, you can do that too. But Polly,
and a lot of these Latino things that we taught, they all cross avenues.
Yeah,
and we really, you see how expansive it is in all the different, writers, directors, and producers, and we really try to cover it all, and a couple of social issues. I pretty much stay away from politics on the channel.
Yeah, well, I think your channel is a celebration. I mean, I think that's
got to keep celebrating. Yep,
you're celebrating the art, you're celebrating the culture, and I think,
and and there's stuff that I haven't, that I'm also discovering too. Like, we're doing a lot of popular for our channel, a lot of popular videos on being the Ricardos. Is what a pioneer Desi Arnaz was.
Yeah,
which I did not know, and it's great to do videos on that. So yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's a great channel, and getting to know you and the stuff we've done. I mean, my God, I can't even believe that Tom, you, myself, we did a blood in, blood out. That might be my favorite, my favorite YouTube stream of the year.
We did 3 big ones, right? We did three big ones this year,
and that was the first. When you and Tom were I just randomly mentioned it, and you guys had already been riffing on it and talking about it. I couldn't believe it. Like, that's one of those movies that I thought that I love that no one else paid any attention to. Right. And I have my DVD of it because it's never come out on Blu-ray, and because there's 2 different versions. There's the Bound by Honor version, and when we started talking about it, I'm like, really? You guys are putting together you're getting the cast of Blood In, Blood Out together? And I reached out. I was like, you got to get Taylor. I didn't even know Taylor Hackford. Like, I had no idea. I'm like, I bet I can find somebody that knows him.
Yeah.
And he came on and hung out. And Helen Mirren came on. It was crazy. That was crazy.
One of the greatest Chicano crime films ever. I mean, it's really a story that just elevates.
Yeah, but then you guys organized Stand and Deliver,
and
then
with Eddie Olmos, yeah.
I mean, and Eddie Olmos
was epic, man.
Epic. But also, I mean, Edward Olmos. I mean, I've revered him for so long. Zoot Suit, which I'm sorry I couldn't come on that show.
Yeah, no, we missed you on that talk. Yeah.
Sorry,
man.
My glasses.
No,
are broken.
it's okay. It's okay. It's all right.
I'm sorry I missed that show.
I recommend everyone check out Zoot Suit. That's on Netflix right now. It's Zoot Suit. Yeah, that's a whole different stream. But listen. Thank you guys for subscribing to the Slant, and we're gonna keep on doing some great stuff, and as well as Rob has come on the channel a lot this year, and it's been fantastic, brother.
Yeah, well, we've had a great time. I mean, and meeting you in meat space, as I said, it was great today. Meat space,
man.
No, it's great. I think one of the great things about this YouTube punditry space is meeting people, and we're all fans sharing what we love and all of those kinds of things. So it's all good.
Yeah, man. I mean, like I said to you when we were hanging out afterwards, it's like, if it was, this is one of the best things about this pandemic endemic. is that we got to make friends.
Yeah.
Got to make some new friends.
Totally.
You know.
Gallows the Media sends in a super chat and says, "You guys are great. If we all agree or not is irrelevant. It's the conversation that comes after. That's what matters and pushes us forward. Merry Christmas, Rob and Polly." Gallows the Media.
Nice.
That's very nice. That's exact. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And I completely agree with you. I mean, the whole point of art, you know, any kind of art, I understand it's movies are the collision of art and commerce. They're expensive to make. But the fact that we can have a conversation about these things is what's important. And
it's got to be. I want more streams like the Lord of the Rings one that you.
Oh man, I love doing
you
that.
guys did. You know, it's you know, those are, to me, those I get more out of those. And
you know, I got attacked on that today. Like, how dare you talk to the critical drinker and Gary from Nerdrotic? And I'm like, I first of all, I love Critical Drinker, and I love his analysis of stories. I think he's got very cogent analysis, and he's playing a character, and Gary, he might rub people the wrong way, but both of them are fans. You know, at the end of the day, people have asked me, like, well, why do you stream with people that you don't seem to align with politically? And I'm like, because we all love storytelling. You know,
come on.
I mean, even if people seem diametrically opposed politically or whatever, I believe in listening to everyone. I mean, sure, up to a point, I do not want to listen to flat earthers because you know, they're at some point you have to say, okay, you're wrong. The Earth is a sphere, and that's where I draw the line. But storytelling, we can argue about it forever. And it depends, you know, stories, even the meaning of stories changes for me as I get older. And so storytelling, I'll always argue about storytelling. But, you know, if somebody's wantonly spewing some kind of nonsense like flat earth, I'm like, yeah, no.
Yeah, or blatant hate. It's like,
yeah,
you know, but even then, if you're breaking bread with somebody, you can find some connections, you know, with the majority of our population. And the reality still is that people are lovingly tolerant of each other on a day-to-day basis.
I think so too.
You know, just turn off the news, guys. You know, and you know, talk to your neighbors, hang out, all that good stuff.
Well, I've one time I made the comment. I said, wouldn't it be great if we got everyone's mothers together to cook their favorite dishes and serve up the world? And you know what someone said to me? Oh, great, Rob. You want to keep your mom in the kitchen cooking. And I'm like, okay. You know what? That was not the point I was making.
Hey, I'll cook. I'll cook.
And my mother was not the kind of woman that would be in the kitchen. No. I was just saying that moms cook their kids' food. That's what moms do.
Yeah.
They do a lot of other things. My mom worked and had her own job and was her own woman. I'm just saying that the point I was trying to make is that everyone has a mom, and everyone's mom has a favorite dish that they cook for you. And what if you could, dads too? I just happened to say moms as an example, and I got attacked for like, oh, you just want women in the kitchen cooking, and I'm like, okay, that misses the point of what I was saying. I'm like, you will all agree that mothers cook their children dishes, and we all had our favorite dishes that moms cooked. Like, I grew up in a neighborhood, I would say it was interesting, and we had different people on our block, and if someone's mom was cooking, like, you know, their best dish, we'd be like, hey, can we come over? Can we have some of that? I mean, and I'm like, the point that I was making is that everyone will sit down at a table and eat a good meal. No one's going to say no. And like, if you want to get people together, You get everyone's moms together to cook their favorite dishes, and people that might hate one another, well, they'll sit down. They'll break bread. They'll be like, all right, what has your mom got? Like, the food is the great equalizer. Somebody cooks you some
first
food,
one.
everyone's going to sit down and eat with you. Everyone's going to be like, all right, I mean, I might hate your guts. I can't stand anything about you, but you talked about tamales earlier. If Polly's grandma is making some tamales, we'll sit down. We'll sit down. Won't we? So
Let me tell you, man. Yeah.
Yeah, right? And you're going to be like,
Yep.
there might be people that hate your guts, but they eat your grandmother's tamales. They're like, maybe you're not so bad.
Maybe not so bad.
Maybe not so bad.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. Or,
Yep.
It just starts a conversation. Yeah, man. Yeah.
And then someone wants to come back and get those tamales again.
Well, they'll talk about they'll talk about it, or like Darth Scipio said in the chat. It's like, I'm gonna have pozole this Christmas. I'm like, I'm having that. I'm having my aunt's pozole this weekend as well. It's food. Oh, I love food.
I didn't love Robert Rodriguez's Once Upon a Time in Mexico, but Johnny Depp is always talking about Pablo. What is he? Poco Publio. What is he saying? The
Poblano.
Poblano. Yeah. What he's talking about food. This food that he loves the whole time, and I'm like, when I was watching the movie, I'm like, I don't even know what that is, but I just want to go eat it. Just because he's talking about it. I'm like, what? Because I love, I remember there was a restaurant it was called Mexico City. It was on Hillhurst in Los Feliz. And then the pandemic, they're gone. They made fresh mole every day. And they were close to Elizabeth's house.
That was a great restaurant.
Dude,
I know.
I loved.
I used to go eat there about 20 years ago. Yeah.
Dude, it was there.
Fantastic.
The owner, their margaritas were great, but they made that mole fresh every day.
Well, the one place I want to take you to is definitely more California, LA type of Mexican food. Mexico City is more of, southern Mexico City. Hello.
Right.
Yeah. Different.
I'll tell you
It's
a funny
good, though.
story. I didn't tell this story on the Lord of the Rings stream. But when I was working on Two Towers, there was a lot of Americans that went to work on Lord of the Rings at Weta Digital and Weta Workshop. And there was and I don't remember the name of it. And Australia and New Zealand, no one drank tequila because no one knows what it is. So there was not a lot of tequila. So somebody like a radio, and people, if you're watching from New Zealand, you got to help me out with this. This is 2004 or 2003. There was a famous New Zealand radio personality that opened a Mexican restaurant in Wellington.
Ooh.
And spared no expense, great tequilas, because a lot of the American crew, a lot of them from LA, couldn't get any Mexican food. And so so the New Zealand radio personality who opened this restaurant, he got Southern Mexican chefs, not understanding that the Americans love Tex-Mex. We loved burritos and didn't understand. Total big difference. And so this restaurant was awesome. They had great tequilas, and they had this big opening night event. And we went. Restaurant was beautiful, but the food was Southern Mexican, authentic Southern Mexican food, which was not what Americans knew about. And moles were a part of that. And you could feel, it was so, I felt so bad because you could feel the disappointment. Like it was hundreds of us there, and we're all there, and we're all looking at this Mexican cuisine thinking, what is this?
This isn't Mexican food.
We didn't know because they didn't know what Tex-Mex was. They're New Zealand.
Like, we want some queso.
Yeah, I mean, it was, and I felt really bad because they had clearly spent some big money on this restaurant, and I don't know if it's still there. But it was just like, oh man, and it really was, to me, it was a lesson in cultural differences. You know, you have to understand where we're at. But
Yep.
yeah, Sean's World. Oh wait, actually, pardon me. Evan Newman. Oh wait, Lynch Design. Let me go back. Lynch Design. Yes, Lynch. I will contact you after the stream's over. If you're available tomorrow at noon, I'd love to stream with you about toys. Evan Newman says, I enjoyed Matrix 4. I wish Weaving had been able to return, but Jonathan Groff was excellent. He was. The way this film approached its own existence reminded me of Twin Peaks: The Return. Totally agree. Not what everyone may have expected, but still true to itself and what came before. Evan, you and I park our shuttlecrafts in the same shuttle bay. I agree. And episode 8 of Twin Peaks: The Return was insane. Sean's World sends in a super chat and says, R&B is the best movie knowledge I've ever seen. A true legend. Well, thank you, but I don't know if I'm the best, but I appreciate your sentiment. There's a lot of other great people out there. I love what I do. I love movies. I have my whole life. I love storytelling. Sean's World goes on to say, I already have 18,000 subs, but Rob, you are one of my idols. Well, Sean, you know, I'd give you a whole lecture about false idols. I won't do that, but I appreciate your kind words. And congrats on 18,000 subs, dude. That's really cool. That means your content is being picked up on and people like it. And the fact is you've got a voice, and my entire premise of this channel, what do I say? Every person has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. All you have to do is listen. By the way, Joshua Levesque, he one of my moderators, one of the cornerstones of this community. He's been a member of this channel for 11 months. His membership has apparently re-upped. So thanks, Josh. Thank you for that.
Yeah, he's cool.
Appreciate it. So yeah, well, Paulie, I guess this has been a great stream. We're 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
What a fantastic stream. I guess I'll be back tomorrow with Robservations before Christmas Eve. Do you have any big Christmas plans? Are you going to see your folks, or what's going on?
Yeah, gonna go hang out with family. Like I said, pozole and tamales. What I'm gonna do is put up our Christmas show we did last week. It was 3.5 hours. I'm gonna put up an hour version of it. It'll probably go up Christmas Day. I gotta see, because one of those days I'll probably do some Christmas song caroling.
Sure.
You know, on live on the channel. You know, but we did a show last week where we had, you know, Christmas and all that stuff. So I think I'll, you know, do like get the best of it and put it up. So make sure you guys check out what we're doing on the slant.
Well, again, everyone go subscribe to Paulie. Go subscribe to Latino Slant. It's great content. You do a great job, and I really like how you bring a certain element of class to YouTube, and you promote Latino creators and music and culture. It's really great. So
thanks, brother.
And it's been really great to get to know you this year. I really appreciate it. And I have to say, real treat meeting you in person today. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Dude, that was so cool, man. And I was sorry I was late, but hey, we got to watch the Batman trailer.
Dude, on an IMAX screen. Come on.
On an IMAX screen.
And I did take a picture of us.
Because you see it on your phone, and it's just like not the same, man.
No, it was great. I really enjoyed that. It was, it's always fun. It's always fun to meet people in real life, and we don't do enough of that. I mean, we can't all the time. I think that's the funny thing about during the time of COVID. If someone asks me if they come to me and I'm like the aging, like Conan at the end of Conan when he was King Conan sitting in the chair, and people come up and go, So Rob, what was it like living through COVID? I only have pretty great memories because I'm like, well, I met lots of people all over the world, and I started streaming with them, and then we met, and I developed friendships I never would have had COVID not hit. And it's so weird to think that. And now as we are locking down again and craziness is happening, well. But listen, I'm going to end this stream, sir. I want to thank you so much for being here, and thank you for coming out to see the movie today. It was so great to meet you and literally break bread with you.
Yeah,
was
man.
good.
Yeah, we had some barbecue sandwiches,
Had some
man.
barbecue. It was good. It was good.
It was decent, and but it was just cool, man. What a great way to end the year to meet you, man. And you know, see a movie, get some food, go look at some action figures. I got a couple of gifts.
You did.
Thanks, brother, man.
Well,
And
thank
then
you,
we got to
sir.
do this tonight, so that was really cool.
It was really cool. It was so good. Well, I will tip my hat. Well, I don't have a hat, but I will if I had you. Yes, Polly. And if I don't see you, I don't talk to you. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I'm still going to be streaming all week, so or next week too. I hope to see more of you. But this was so much fun. Thank you for coming on Robservations and a special late night show talking about the Matrix. And yes, so I will bid you adieu if we spoke French.
All right, brother.
We don't.
Take care, everyone in the chat. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
All right. Well, I will continue on. That was so good, Polly. I say goodbye to you, sir. This was so awesome, and thank you for being here. That was great, and I really, it's so much fun. I really had such a good time. I do have letters and things, but I will come back tomorrow with the Robservations. I'm going to do a special, fully articulated tomorrow. As is off, but I'm going to do a fully articulated tomorrow with a couple of special guests to talk about some special things at noon, and there will be a Robservations afterwards. So I want to thank all of you for tuning in to this special show talking about the Matrix. I want to thank my guest, Paulie from Latino Slant. Thank you so much. It was so great to meet him. I want to thank all of you for tuning in. I've got some new subscribers. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I want to thank everyone who supports this channel via super chats and memberships and tips and all of that. Very much appreciated. As you know, or maybe you don't, for members, we do have member chats every other week. We try and do it bi-weekly, and there's going to be more members. We are actually going to begin the 4th season of Robservations going into the new year. I can't believe it. I'm coming to the end of my 3rd year on YouTube. The Post-Geek singularity is expanding. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank my moderating staff, Darren Seeley, Joshua Levesque. Both of you guys, thank you for coming on. I don't know if anyone else is here. Brian Hepburn is here. Thank you, Brian. I want to thank my Blue Wrenches. And we have the greatest community on YouTube, if I do say so myself. So thank all of you. Please, I want to know what you eviscerate us in the chats. Please, if you want, write something and comment. I want to know what everyone. I do read every comment, by the way. So tell me what you think of the film. I want to know. I mean, I think we're here for a discussion. And on that note, I would like to say, no matter I'll say it again. Every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And on that note, please watch Matrix Resurrections. By the way, Warner Brothers did not pay me to say that. I wish they would, because I will be a paid shill for the studios. But no one has yet taken me up on that, except for CBS. I will never be a paid shill for modern Star Trek, just so you all know. And on that note, I would say to all of you, well, I would say have a better day, but right now, I will say have a better night. And I will see you mañana.